Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Charlene Aaron.
And I'm Ephraim Graham. Russia's president is moving forward with annexation of Crimea despite growing international pressure against him. Russian troops have occupied the region for 2 weeks. Today, Vladimir Putin approved a draft bill to annex the Crimean Peninsula. And he's set to stake Russia's claim on Crimea in a televised address to both houses of parliament. Meanwhile, Vice President Joe Biden is now in Poland. It is America's latest move to show its resolve against Russia's mounting intervention in Ukraine. Monday, the U.S. and European Union announced asset freezes and other sanctions against Russian and Ukrainian officials involved in the Crimean crisis. And President Obama warned more would come if Russia didn't stop interfering.
If Russia continues to interfere in Ukraine, we stand ready to impose further sanctions.
It is possible to add to these measures, of course. This is not a list that is set in stone for the future.
Thus far, Russia's deputy prime minister has laughed at the sanctions, and a popular Russian TV anchor has boasted Russia has the capacity to turn the U.S. into radioactive dust.
Close to 1 million Ukrainian Americans are closely watching the latest developments in their home country and have plenty of concerns about Russia's growing control over Crimea. Heather Sells has that story.
Olya Zaporochets checks the Ukrainian press several times a day.
This is the country that is in my heart. This is the most dearest country to me. It's my home.
Although her parents live just a few hours from the border of Crimea, Zaporochets says she doesn't fear for their safety, at least not right now. But Irina Levtarova does fear for her brother, who lives in Kiev.
He's my only sibling. I worry about him being in front of the special forces. I'm worried about him doing something very heroic and getting injured or worse.
For many Ukrainians, the current conflict brings fears of history repeating itself, of times past when borders were disregarded and minor disagreements escalated.
Nobody in 1853 thought an argument between the Tsar of Russia and the new president of France, Louis Napoleon III, over who had the keys to the Holy Sepulchre Church in Jerusalem would manifest in a war that led to the death of 500,000 people.
Even so, says Zaporochets, Russia's invasion of Crimea caught many off guard.
None of us, I guess, could truly believe that Russia would attack us because we've always been thinking of us as brother nations and people who fought World War together, who developed our countries together, rebuilt our countries, remarried. There are so many connections.
Like many Ukrainians, Zaporochets sees Sunday's referendum as carefully staged, the outcome predetermined. And as many in the West fear, she believes Putin will not stop with Crimea.
He wants to fight. He wants the entire Ukraine territory. He wants it being subdued to Russia.
Dmitry Litovsky protested against the Soviet Union in the 1990s before he moved to the U.S. Today, he believes Russia is headed towards fascism.
Their signs are right there. Annexing Ukraine, controlling media, replacing communism with nationalism, and persecuting minorities.
For Litovsky, Zaporochets, and other Ukrainian Americans, it's a time of great concern. And despite social media and other technology connecting them to Ukraine, the conflict remains one they can only watch from afar. Heather Sells, CBN News.
A new report reveals the communication systems on that missing Malaysian plane was shut down before one of the pilots communicated with the tower. It is the latest evidence of foul play, and it comes as investigators search the flight simulator found in one of the pilot's homes. Malaysian authorities have offered contradictory information on the timeline of events. A U.S. official says they're doing it to keep things secret. Background checks of all Chinese citizens on board revealed no links to terrorism, ruling out speculation that Chinese Muslim separatists might have been involved in the plane's disappearance. Still, all signs point to a deliberate act.
The turns that this airplane made, even if we don't know the altitudes, someone was very definitely in control of this airplane and knew what they were doing.
Hijacking still has not been ruled out. Almost 2 weeks later, there are still few leads on the plane's location.
A California man who threatened to bomb the Los Angeles subway system is in custody today. The FBI arrested 20-year-old Nicholas Toussaint Sunday near the Canadian border. He's charged with trying to provide support to Islamic extremists in Syria. He planned to travel to Syria to join al-Qaeda to fight for, quote, Allah's army. Authorities say Toussaint posted several terrorist messages on social media sites. He indicated he wanted to conduct violent jihad and be part of America's downfall. Friends who knew Toussaint from a local church youth group say he often kept to himself.
A 4.4 earthquake rocked Pasadena, California Monday. The epicenter was in the Santa Monica Mountains, the only quake of that magnitude ever recorded there. An early warning system alerted the team 2 seconds before the shaking began. Watch as these news anchors responded to the shakes.
Earthquake. Yep, we're having an earthquake. Okay, it appears to have stopped.
Yeah. Officials say the tremor should serve as a warning for residents to be prepared with the emergency kits as well as a safety plan in case of a larger earthquake hitting.
Well, winter is hanging on as yet another storm hit the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the eastern U.S. this week. Spring is just 2 days away, but snow accumulations in the region piled as high as 11 inches. Mark Martin has the story.
I'm having a ball.
Charlie Beck is trying to make the best of shoveling out from the snow. It's hard to believe these are scenes from the Jersey Shore just a couple of days before spring. Jersey Shore resident Emerson Shaw says enough is enough.
It was kind of funny. In one of the churches near where we live at home, they have a sign out that says, for all of those of you that are praying for snow, stop!
New Jersey resident Mike Schlegel says he's never experienced a winter like this one.
No, not even close, especially in this late March.
The winter storm made driving conditions treacherous in parts of Virginia and West Virginia. A commercial passenger bus overturned on Interstate 95 in Stafford County, Virginia, sending dozens of people to the hospital, at least 4 with serious injuries, and the driver to jail. He's being held on reckless driving charges.
How fast was it going?
Too fast for the road conditions.
Shanora Moore was hurt in the accident.
The bus just went boom, the glass shattered.
In Philadelphia, the 4.5 inches of snow Monday made this winter the second snowiest on record. The National Weather Service said 67.4 inches had fallen so far for the 2013-14 season. This while business owners along the New Jersey boardwalk are anxiously waiting to say goodbye to snow and hello to tourists.
3 more days until spring. We just want it to be here. So hopefully, you know, the snow, it's out of the system right now. And I mean, we're looking forward to spring. We just want to get open and we want guests to start coming here and the sun to be shining.
Mark Martin, CBN News.
This is David Brody in Washington. Well, things are getting back to normal after yesterday's snowstorm dumped more than 10 inches of snow on parts of the D.C. metro area. Dozens of schools, along with the federal government, closed down. However, today the federal government is back open. And some trivia for you. AccuWeather says this is the 3rd largest snowstorm to hit D.C. this late in the season. It's made for some disastrous driving. A commercial passenger bus carrying 54 people overturned on I-95 south of D.C., leaving 4 passengers with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. And the airports here are getting back to normal after hundreds of flights were grounded on Monday. All of this snow left residents in the cold and in a very familiar place. But judging from the warm temperatures just days ago, the sudden snowstorm took some by surprise.
It felt like the middle of spring yesterday.
And now?
It's freezing.
The story today, thawing out as temperatures are expected to rise above freezing. Then come temperatures in the 60s this weekend, and soon after, the iconic cherry blossoms will be here, and all of this will be a distant memory. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
A University of North Carolina Wilmington professor is suing the university over his First Amendment rights. Dr. Mike Adams says since his conversion from atheism to Christianity, he's been deliberately overlooked for promotion. According to the Christian Post, Adams says from the time of his hiring in 1993, he was promoted and praised, but that stopped when he became a Christian in 2000. Adams says he was harassed and denied promotion even though he was more productive than his peers. His lawyer stated, quote, universities are supposed to be a marketplace of ideas, not a place where professors face retaliation for having a different view than the university officials. Last year, a federal court found enough evidence supporting his claim to warrant a trial.
Schools in New London, Connecticut will now recognize Muslim holidays. That means Muslim students can now be absent from school and teachers may not schedule any tests on those days. The Council on American Islamic Relations says more and more school districts nationwide are recognizing Muslim holidays.
Coming up next, Broadcasting Freedom, a TV program, offers spiritual solutions for 250 million people. How the message is taking root in their hearts and their neighborhoods.
A bishop in China's underground Catholic Church is dead. Joseph Fan, the Bishop of Shanghai, spent decades in labor camps and under house arrest. Pope John Paul II appointed Fan in 2000, but the Chinese Communist Party does not recognize the Vatican's right to appoint leaders and put him in prison. He remained in custody until his death this week after a brief illness. Bishop Fan was 97 years old.
A Christian TV program broadcast in the Bengali language is poised to reach 250 million people in South Asia. Samadhan is produced by CBN India. It is designed to offer the Bengali people answers to the everyday problems they face. Take a look.
Surfing through television channels one Sunday morning, a song caught Rumpa Pramanic's attention. The song was part of Samadhan, CBN's Bengali 700 Club style show.
I was facing a problem which I could not share with anyone, but the song relieved me from my pain. I experienced peace listening to the song. The song was very comforting and the song described the pain and suffering of Jesus.
So the following Sunday she watched Samadhan again and then called the phone number on the screen for prayer for her grandmother.
She is very old and she was having arthritis problems. She was suffering for many years but did not get cured. She couldn't stand up if she was sitting, and if she sat down, she could not get up. She always had to walk holding a stick.
A few hours later, an excited Rumpa called the Samadhan counselors to share some news with them.
After having prayer, my grandma gave thanks to me saying, Rumpa, because you called Samadhan and got prayers for me, now I am fine. I have no pain in walking. Then I called again to Samadhan to give thanks.
Namaskar. As Rumpa watched this program week after week, her faith in Jesus Christ increased and many prayers were answered.
I encouraged many to watch the program and call the numbers to get a solution for their problems. I told them, you will feel good if you talk with them, if you share your problems with them.
Soon, every home in Bagmari village started watching Samadhan. Encouraged by what they saw, many began to call the Samadhan phone numbers for prayer. The counselors prayed with them and told them about Jesus.
When they got answers to their prayers, they shared the news with their relatives too and encouraged them to attend the church.
The number increased after watching the Samadhan program. Approximately 80 people were added to the church. Before, there were 20 to 25 people, but after watching the program, now there are 100 people.
God used Samadhan to transform Rumpa's life and that of her family and friends. Today, they worship and pray to Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior.
We believe that those who are in sin can be saved, that they can get peace only if they come to Jesus. And for that reason, we believe in Him as our Lord and Master.
Samadhan has been recognized for its excellence. The National Religious Broadcasters in the U.S. awarded CBN India its International Innovation Award for Samadhan. You can find a full interview with the director of CBN India at cbnnews.com.
Up next, the new attack you never saw coming, shutting down America's power grid. the threat of domestic terrorism that could bring this nation to its knees. When we come back.
What if all of a sudden your electricity simply vanished and you had no lights, no heat, no air conditioning, no cell phone or internet?
That's right. If terrorists took down the power grid, it could lead to chaos across the country. And as Mark Martin reports, it could happen much more easily than you think.
With its maze of electric equipment, the Metcalf transmission substation quietly took up space in California's Santa Clara County. On April 16th last year, that all changed. Take a look at this surveillance video. You can see the muzzle flash of rifles and sparks from bullets striking the chain link fence around the substation. For nearly 20 minutes, snipers unloaded, then vanished before police arrived. Even the shell casings left behind, the kind ejected by AK-47s, carried no fingerprints. Authorities later discovered the military-style attack blasted 17 giant transformers and 6 circuit breakers, resulting in more than $15 million in damage. Those transformers send power to an area that heavily relies on it, Silicon Valley. Former FBI agent Rick Smith, who was a part of the anti-terrorism unit, said the message is clear.
Obviously, it wasn't just a couple of guys out having a beer. There was some orchestrated attack that was planned, and it looked somewhat professional. If you don't have any power, you obviously have disruption, and the message is that our facilities were vulnerable.
Fortunately, in the Metcalf case, electric grid officials rerouted power to prevent a blackout. Still, that did not stop John Wellinghoff, the chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission at the time, from telling the Wall Street Journal the attack was, quote, the most significant incident of domestic terrorism involving the grid that has ever occurred in the U.S. That statement unleashed a firestorm from lawmakers and security experts wondering about the vulnerability of the American power grid in the event of a physical attack and EMP, or electromagnetic pulse attack.
That's where you would basically wipe out our electric grid and any instruments that use computer chips.
California Assemblyman Jim Patterson, vice chair of the Utilities and Commerce Committee, agrees with Wellinghoff.
What keeps me awake at night, and a lot of the people who produce and distribute power in California, is this whole question about whether this was isolated or whether we need to see this as the beginning of a new security risk. The big picture is, though, that this is an indication of the soft targets and the variety of targets in this new attack on America.
Rich Lorden of the Electric Power Research Institute calls the attack and its execution unprecedented.
So the feeling is this may have been preparation for an act of war.
Lorden's colleague at the Institute strongly disagrees.
I think he was off base for making that sensational kind of remark. I don't understand why he would even say that, and you know, we've had quite a conversation since then about this.
Gelling's thoughts on the motivation behind the attack, however, don't change his concern for the security of the grid.
It's an ongoing battle to stay one step ahead of these folks who might want to do us some harm, not just physical harm to the power system, but also the cyber side.
There's a lot of ground to cover in that battle. The U.S. power grid is extensive, and from the East Coast to the West Coast, many substations are located in remote areas with minimum security. This substation in rural Northern California does have a high, thick chain link fence with barbed wire on top, and you can see the main gate is locked. But look, I'm standing right next to the facility, and there are no security cameras or security personnel nearby. CBN News discovered the same situation in the largest city in the country. This is the Farragut Switchyard. The electricity that comes through here powers the financial district and also much of the New York City subway system. As you can see, it's only protected by a flimsy fence and minimum security. If it's accessible to us, experts say it's also accessible to terrorists.
As horrible as 9/11 was to this nation and to the city, had the terrorists flown 2 planes into this facility, the consequences to New York City and to the nation would have been orders of magnitude more damaging than what actually happened.
I hope we never get to the point where we have to monitor this entire infrastructure which is literally millions of miles of wire, 150,000 poles, and roughly the same number of substations. Impossible.
However, Gellings and other leaders are by no means throwing in the towel. Pacific Gas and Electric, owner of the Metcalfe substation, has worked with federal and local agencies and consultants to increase security. Among other things, company leaders plan to put up opaque fencing, advanced camera systems and lighting, and more alarms.
These are things we've already done: perform a risk assessment, evaluate the gaps we have, and then implement strategies to fill those gaps.
One strategy is increasing patrols around substations. As CBN News walked around and shot video of the Metcalfe substation, it took about half an hour before we encountered inquisitive deputies with the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department.
There's a lot more patrolling. There's a lot more public safety eyes. There's a lot more tracking and identifying of potential domestic threat with respect to that kind of chatter.
As far as the hardening of the grid itself, Gelling says the Electric Power Research Institute is literally developing a Kevlar vest to put around transformers to protect them. He says researchers are also working on devices that would sense the vibrations of people and report that movement to provide more awareness of the situation on location.
And then we want to get overall situational awareness and use such as unmanned aerial vehicles to actually look at a whole area of the power system.
The drone idea has been met with reluctance from the FAA. That's not stopping power industry leaders and others, though, from exploring options to fortify a grid which has shown itself to be quite vulnerable. Mark Martin, CBN News, California.
And welcome back to CBN News Today. We leave you today with a big announcement. My colleague here is now no longer Charlene Israel. It is
Charlene Aaron.
Congratulations, you're married now.
I'm very, very happy and blessed to meet the most wonderful man, Leon Aaron, and we kind of quietly slipped away and talked and tied the knot. And we're very, very happy. Here's the bling. And we're very, very excited about what God's got for us and what God's going to be doing in our lives in the future.
We are happy. Very, very happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
Congratulations, Leon. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Take care.